Hi, I'm Troy Campbell. I'm a design psychologist and I'm an assistant professor of marketing in the Lundquist College of Business here at the University of Oregon. So trust is this massive problem in modern times. And in order to solve that, we really need to understand where trust comes from. And trust comes from, in the most simplified way, two locations. One location is this space of expertise. Do you believe that this person has this expertise? But this other location, this other force is this person on my side? Do they care for me? Are they a good person? And what's happening a lot of times in modern times is that people are looking at scientists or journalists or politicians, and they're not necessarily, but sometimes they are, but usually not saying that's a stupid person. What they're saying is that person isn't interested in me. This is a hyper-liberal scientist trying to push their agenda. This is a conservative economist who doesn't care about the poor. And they don't listen to the science that comes out of that person or the journalistic coverage of that science, not because they're really mistrusting of their abilities, but because they're mistrusting of their motives. And in modern times, if we are going to build trust, this is what we need to think about a lot more because we haven't been working here. So one of the principles we talk about with communication is the start with care principle. And so instead of start with your credentials, instead what you should do is start with your care. Communicate to the audience that you're talking about that you value them and that you want the best for them. And you might be coming with a criticism of something they're doing, but in the end, you want a world where they are well off. And that is such a simple but overlooked thing that we often just do not do. And you really need to start with care because lots of times people have this intuition that you don't care, right? So they believe that economist is biased and doesn't care about you. They believe that climate scientist doesn't care about you. And so even if you haven't said anything negative, if you don't start with care, all the prejudice, all the baggage that comes around your identities, your news outlet, your career is going to be there. Whether you're a scientist, Black Lives Matter advocate, or advocating for education and betterment in rural areas of America. So how do we talk to the other side, for lack of a better word? Well, here's one thing to remember. You love assholes who are on your team. You love the asshole rock star, the TV host that is just mean to the people you disagree with. And the problem is most people spend their whole media consumption consuming that person. So they actually might learn some good things from that person about what's wrong with the world and maybe what public policy would be best, but they don't learn how to communicate with anybody. They've learned what I and my colleagues call choir speak, which is the language that works well when you're talking with people who agree with you in your choir, can rally you up and actually lead to some really great motivated thing. But to anybody outside of the choir, it is offensive and problematic. And so what we need to do is we need to learn how to overcome choir speak. And there are many ways to do that. Two simple ways to do that is always start with care. But in order to understand how to start with care, you have to build your understanding of the other side. And that means you need to listen to the other side. So instead of just watching the news coverage of your side talking about the other side, go watch a 15-minute speech by somebody who you disagree with. Go listen to the music that a subculture you disagree with listens to. And that way you'll actually understand who they are and where they're coming from. And so the next time you want to show care or communicate with them, you'll actually show that you've understood them and spent time taking their perspectives. And you're going to be much, much more successful. So confirmation bias is this term from my field of psychology that has just exploded in the public consciousness. And we often don't talk about it in a nuanced way. And I could talk about all its nuances for hours, but I want to offer just this one, is that there's a difference between desirability bias, which is believing something because it's desirable, and confirmation bias, which is keeping and believing something just because you currently sort of believe or intuitively think it's true, but don't really have a strong reason to believe that. You don't really care, right? This is, I love Obama, I'm highly patriotic, this is my university and I'm attached with it, this is my rock star, I want to keep thinking positively about it. Over here, you can have simple beliefs, like, I think that GMOs are good or bad. And the problematic thing is, if you have any sort of an intuition to begin with, the way that you often engage and receive your information will be confirming of this, even if you're really not wanting to confirm it. So one example of that is, say you think that GMOs are really dangerous. You might, to learn about GMOs, be more likely to Google, why are GMOs dangerous versus why are GMOs safe? And the algorithm of the internet, the people that might answer your questions on the internet, are going to be very different. And so confirmation bias is not just this thing that radical people have or that we have for the things that we care and love about. It's all our just general intuitions about the way that we exist in the world. And this was always problematic, but it's potentially especially problematic in the way that algorithms and Google search can sometimes support and confirm existing things that we already believe, things that we happily or mostly happily feel fine if they were contradicted, but will not have contradicted because of the way that media works. So confirmation bias is a problem. What do we do about it? Whether it's the desirability part or just the sort of quasi-rational confirmation bias version. What do we do about confirmation bias? One show that I think is really doing a great job in fixing this is the show Adam Ruins Everything, because it is teaching us this idea that we should question our current conceptions. And so it is a show that not only corrects misconceptions people have, whether it's about hydration or public policy or aliens or the solar system, but it also teaches a logos and ethos and pathos about how to be a thinker. And it's a thinker that embraces the idea that what one currently thinks is not perfect. And sort of has this vibe that I really like, which is this constant idea, not of just questioning, but just I wonder, right? I wonder why things are the way it is. I wonder if this was different, if this thing would change. I wonder if that person did that because they're mean, because they're selfish, because they were confused, because they were pressured. All these sort of ways to think about globally of things and not automatically zone in and zero in on what you already think and you already believe. So education can be greatly improved if we move away from critical thinking to scientific thinking. And I'm painting a pretty broad brush on these terms, but critical thinking is where you question everything. Science is where you question and you start to answer everything. So critical thinking says what is wrong with the world or what is potentially problematic, or think really hard on this. Scientific thinking is saying, I wonder if this is true. How do we test if that's true? I wonder if this is actually false or it goes a different way. How do we test that's true? And you can test things in certain ways where you think about how you would test them. You can think about where you'd go get data, or you can sort of start to construct interactions and sort of logic models in your mind to sort of cross out or decrease the probability that one answer is true. This is a much more generative, positive way of being than this way. Now, of course, sometimes when people say critical thinking, what they're actually doing is scientific thinking, but that is often not the case. And we need to move away, and there's a wonderful book called The Limits of Criticism that really encourages us to say criticism is not going to give us the future that we want. It's just going to make us sad with the present that we have. Scientific thinking is how we move forward, both individually and culturally. Right now, things can feel negative. Things can feel hopeless. Things can feel more conflicted than they ever were. But you actually should potentially approach modern times with hope and appreciation, because what is happening right now in this conflict is we are seeing in high def resolution exactly what the problems are. And more people are becoming aware of how problematic things actually are. And for a moment, that is really bad. But it's great, because if we can see the problems and we have the right scientific inclination towards them, then we can actually have the solutions to them, such that even if today feels pretty bad, tomorrow is going to be so much better than today, and so much better than yesterday was. We just didn't realize it.